Welcome to Confessions of an Unfulfilled Woman. I am Melissa June, and I am here to talk about the things that most of us just don't want to talk about. Finally, earth and speak into existence the many ways that so many of us are suffering on the inside. Did you know that women are 1.5 more times to suffer from depression than men? How many of us are quietly and secretly suffering in silence in our homes that we worked tirelessly to create? In this happily ever after that we perfectly constructed, in this Barbie dream house of a vision that we created when we were children. How many of us are sitting in that existence, watching it manifest into real life and finding ourselves miserable and really unsure even how to even express what it is that makes us so unhappy? Where and why are we so unfulfilled? Right, I went through several rounds of postpartum depression, working tirelessly to pretend like I wasn't suffering. Because who was I to suffer when I had healthy children? Constantly invalidating the feelings that I was feeling and constantly making excuses for the ways in which I wasn't hearing myself or seeing myself or feeling into myself. Creating humans, supporting life, volunteering at schools, supporting my husband, working tirelessly around the clock to make sure that anything and everything in my life was perfectly nurtured. But who was nurturing me? It took getting diagnosed with breast cancer for me to finally acknowledge the fact that I didn't even know how to nurture myself. And it was nobody's fault but my own. I didn't know how to ask for help. I didn't know what I needed. And I didn't know what to say. I found out later that breast cancer is the metaphysical representation of over nurturing and being under nurtured. Well, Captain Obvious. So many of us women are the rock of our families, of our nucleus, of our friend groups, of the PTA, of the office. There isn't a single environment where we aren't tirelessly committed to doing it all and being it all the time. Because guess what? We now have the access to be everything that our grandmothers weren't allowed to be, and still keeping and holding on to the obligation of everything that they were. We have built and created this celebration, this glorification of self-sacrifice. And then we wonder why so many women are getting sick. Where's all the breast cancer coming from? Where are all the autoimmune disease coming from? Where's all this depression coming from? And we joke about depression. I've been through, like I said, postpartum depression several times, enough times to know that we would joke about drinking Chardonnay out of sippy cups. And we did. And many of us are. And we're taking our happy pills. And we're escaping our realities. We're escaping the very reality we worked tirelessly to create and still not giving ourselves the space to admit that we're unfulfilled. And I want to change that. Like right here and now, by admitting the time that I decided that I was going to come out and admit that I was unfulfilled, that I had everything I ever wanted and it wasn't enough. And why wasn't it enough? Because I'd curated this perfect life, and guess what? I had to be perfect in order to live in it. I couldn't slack. I couldn't take a break. There wasn't enough vacations or spa treatments or women's ladies' nights or date nights that would ever make up for the fact that I couldn't hear myself think or feel. And it wasn't until I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and frankly, not even right after I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I was diagnosed with breast cancer and I still went to 2 conferences with my drains still attached. I was still going from meeting to football practice to dance class to chemo, back and forth again, until after my 3rd round of chemo, I got a really bad blood clot that honestly almost killed me. I was at a work retreat in LA about to fly to Vegas for a conference, and I got grounded, literally grounded. And as I went into the OR for an emergency surgery, I tested positive for COVID. And now I found myself in the hospital for 10 days in solitude, which now for most of us women is an absolute dream. And I joked about that being the case for the first 36 hours. And then all of a sudden, something shifted. I had to sit with myself. I had to hear myself think. I had to be aware and be conscious of all the things that I couldn't escape. There was no alcohol. There were no drugs. There was no person that I could possibly deflect my needs onto. I was left alone with myself. And that, my friends, is when I learned how to meditate. Now, I have been always that person that said, I'm not a meditator. I can't meditate. I can't close my mind off. I can't stop my thinking. I'm just such a thinker. I'm just such a doer. I'm such a busybody. We've created all these identities in order to glorify the fact that we are avoiding ourselves. Because guess what? We're all meditators. We're all thinkers. We all have this magical thing called a cognition. We're just trying not to use it because we don't want it to expose what we don't want to see. But I promise that's temporary. Once you get through it and in it, I promise it does get lighter. But you have to go through it. So I sat in the hospital and I started listening to YouTube videos on meditation. I started doing guided meditations. And before you knew it, I could do a 10-minute meditation and stay on track. Then before you know it, I could do a 45-minute meditation. I even got to the point where I'd do over an hour and then I would usually fall asleep. But it got me through those 10 days in the hospital. And something significantly shifted in me when I got out of the hospital. I really shifted a lot of my plans. Now, granted, I was round 3 of 8 rounds of chemo, so that might have happened either way. But what happened was I went back to my real life and I started noticing things. And the first step is noticing what you notice. I started noticing the way that the leaves blew in the trees. I started noticing the sensation of the wind on my skin. I started walking a little slower and more mindfully. I started hearing things a little clearer, the birds chirping, even the sound of the wind nestling through the trees. The awareness is like a muscle. And the more we exercise that muscle, which means the more we slow things down and pause and give ourselves the capacity and the space to think, even though at first it feels like an avalanche of emotions is coming through you, which is true, but it's emotions, it's emotions. It is working through our body and it will pass. If you give it time and you just be present with it, it will flow out like water. I started noticing my life shifting and me wanting to move a little slower. Suddenly, the constant attention to my inbox felt less necessary. Suddenly, having a text message come through my phone, my immediate response felt unnecessary. I can get to them when I get to them. It's giving yourself permission to be present with yourself and giving yourself permission to slow things down a little bit. And by doing that, I promise you actually create the capacity to speed things up. Because what you're spending your time and energy on and doing, you're so much more intentional about it because you've put thought into doing it. And it's not just happening by happenstance. It's not just happening automatically. You're not just going unconsciously moving one foot in front of the other. So if depression is living in the past, which it is looking backwards. Anxiety looking in the future. The peace comes from living in the present moment. And if it's one thing that I get from clients all the time, it is they just want peace. We just want peace. And in a world right now that is constantly at war, physically, metaphysically, spiritually, physically, in all the ways. Women are the ones carrying the weight of correspondence, of community, of connection, trying to create that peace. But how do we create that peace when we have tormented our insides by avoiding the very thing that allows us to access that level of peace? And that's presence. And what helps us become more present? That is meditation. That is through your breath. That is through a pause. And now, while I will, with every ounce of my being, encourage that every single person listening to this video goes and signs themselves up for a Vipassana, which is a 10-day silent retreat, which is life-changing, I realize that that's maybe not the way to dip your toe in the water. taking a 3 days, taking 1 day. Honestly, give me 10 minutes. Take 10 minutes in your car before you go into the office. Take 10 minutes before you come into the house after going to the grocery store. Give me 10 minutes before you go out to the ladies' night, before you get out of the car. Give me 10 minutes. You can carve out 10 minutes. And then take those 10 minutes and you close your eyes. And you breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. And you focus on how that air feels coming in your nose. And you focus on the relief of it coming out your chest. That was just 2 breaths. 2 breaths can change your whole life. Imagine what 10 minutes can do. Now imagine if you can do that 10 minutes twice a day, maybe 3 times a day. Now imagine if you did that every day for a week or a month or a year. It would change your life. It would absolutely change your life. Now, by no means am I saying that breast cancer was caused by my being undernurtured. I will say that it certainly didn't help. And I will also say that my goal and my mission here is to bring to life what so many of us are suffering and struggling with on the inside. Starting with admitting that we're unfulfilled. It doesn't mean that you have to blow your life up like I did. You don't have to go through a divorce and move and change your jobs and do all of those things. By no means am I prescribing that to anybody unless that's the right path for you. But I am saying that we have the capacity to just accept and admit that we're unfulfilled and we don't know why. And then we can create space in our life, like for breathing and for meditation, in order to let some of those things that are bubbling up inside present themselves. And then we can create the capacity to do something about it, to do something with them, to let them pass. We've got to let them come up, and then we've got to let them go. We don't have to sit here and dig for things, dig through past traumas, dig through childhood wounds, dig for more, to excavate from our innards in order to find the happiness beneath it all. It's not how it works. It's not how it has to work. It's so much simpler than we're making it out to be. It's so much simpler than what this world of spirituality, which I think is also so beautiful and so incredible and has given me so much life. And also, it can create this whole other matrix that we have to then survive and sustain in. Are we moving fast enough? Are we doing the work right? Are we doing enough of the work? Are we committed to the work? Again, it's another matrix that we're just buying ourselves into. The idea here is this, and it's simple. We're unfulfilled, and we don't know why. We know something is missing. We know that we're not totally happy. We know that we're having a hard time accessing whatever it is inside of us that makes us joyful and happy. We're done curating and hyper-curating our lives. So then do me a favor. Take 10 minutes a day for an entire week and notice the difference. And then take 10 minutes a day, a couple times a day for an entire week, and then notice the difference. Then take 10 minutes a day, a few times a day for another week. And after that month, tell me how your life has shifted, how your consciousness and awareness around who you are and what you desire and what makes you feel joyful and what makes you feel suffering. Just taking the awareness, you don't have to do anything about it right now. All you have to do is become aware of it. We can deal with how to fix it and make it go away later. For now, just the awareness is all you need. My name is Melissa June. This is Confessions of an Unfulfilled Woman, and I hope today you find peace.